School shootings are plaguing our society, which is why I'm urging people to take action. Many school shootings happen due to mental illness, which is why I'm urging school administrations to implement better mental health practices. First, I want to talk about how mental illness and school shootings are correlated. Second, I want to talk about my possible solutions for implementing better mental health practices in schools. And lastly, I want to talk about the possible benefits of implementing these solutions. And I know that school shootings are caused by many reasons, but it's not just about gun control. Many school shooters often are victims of severe bullying, and they suffer with many different things. And according to author Allison Paolini, research shows that many of the attackers, around 61%, demonstrated a history of suicide attempts, as well as had a documented history of depression or desperation prior to an attack. And I found this very interesting because it just goes to show how many school shooters and attackers struggle with mental illness, and the fact that many people did what they did and no one did anything to prevent it is just astounding to me. And it just goes to show how much we need to do to fix this problem in schools. And school shootings are clearly caused by not just mental illness, but I believe that it is definitely one of the biggest things that we can do to take a step in the right direction. And according to Agnes Varghese, programs that teach students the skills to understand and manage their emotions have been tied to a noteworthy reduction in aggression, which is evident in school shooters. So obviously with this, it just goes to show that by teaching students at a young age coping abilities and how to manage their emotions, it can give them a better outlook overall on how their brains work and how to manage their own feelings. And by doing this, hopefully, they will not lash out with violence or anger and aggression. And also, according to author Christina Samuels, she states that a raft of research suggests that screening children for mental health problems as early as primary school years and providing appropriate support can help alleviate poor school performance, bullying, depression, and suicide. And such programs could catch the rare students who might be considering violent action and steer them into appropriate services. By implementing better mental health screening, especially at young ages, I believe that students can be steered down the right path, and by also, as I previously mentioned, by educating students on how to cope with their emotions, these two things combined can make kids be able to lash out in not anger, but maybe just not lash out at all. They will be able to process their feelings and emotions and be able to go to school and not have these heavy feelings that are weighing on them. And as I mentioned before, kids who are struggling with bullying or trauma or anything that's affecting them, it'll give them a way to kind of look at it in a different way. They'll have these abilities and these coping mechanisms that will teach them how to ask for help or speak to a friend or speak to a parent, and it'll let them not feel so alone in their feelings. So they'll feel less isolated and they will just feel more open to talking about their feelings. And by doing so, I think it'll also just create a better overall atmosphere. And I just want to say that there are many benefits to implementing these solutions. And although I can't talk about all of them, there's a couple that I do want to address. For instance, author Emily Green agrees that by improving school climate through efforts targeting bullying and harassment and providing adequate mental health services are essential for a healthy school environment. So by implementing these practices for mental health and allowing kids to cope with their emotions and letting them learn about their minds, essentially, it will allow them to have a better school environment and allow them to just feel overall just happier when they're at school. Because I know that personally, when I was younger, and even now, I struggled with coming to school and setting my feelings aside. And now, if kids start to learn these coping abilities and coping mechanisms at a young age, hopefully they won't have to struggle the way I did. And it's just a healthy thing to have a positive learning atmosphere, which is something that I struggle with because I think a lot of kids my age just didn't have those coping mechanisms that I have mentioned before. And lastly, not only that, but according to authors Lori Jackson and Steve Peck, when students have gained understanding of their emotions and learn to manage them, they can focus solely on learning. As I mentioned before, I personally have struggled with this, and I believe that many students come to school and they don't know how to set their feelings aside for the sake of learning and for the sake of being able to focus on their schoolwork. And I think that by learning about their own emotions and learning new ways to think about things, they can come to school with a clear mind and they can focus solely on their schoolwork. And not only that, but kids who are struggling and are obviously in need of help, they'll feel more likely to reach out to someone. And I know that the correlation between mental illness and school shootings is an undeniable thing. And although it's not the only cause of school shootings, it's one that needs to be addressed by school administrations. Implementing mental health screening and education at a young age can ultimately lead to a better performance in school and an overall better environment for all students. Not only that, but it will help prevent the violence that leads to school shootings. And I just hope that school administrations take my advice and implement these practices for the sake of all students. Thank you.